So today is Thursday, the 1st of March, and it also happens to be World Book Day. That basically means that it's a day where you should celebrate reading books. I myself am a very avid book reader. I read books all the time. I'm always reading a book. I literally go mad if I don't have at least one book on the go with me. Last year I attempted to do the 50 book challenge. I failed, but only, by a few books. I think I managed to read about 35 or 36 books by the end of the year. This year I'm doing it again, and so far I think I'm doing a lot better than I did last year because I've already read about 7 books and it's only like March. So yeah, one of the books that I recently read was The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. This book is written by Mark Haddon and it's absolutely incredible. Now, I'm not really a book reviewer, as you might have guessed, because this is my first time reviewing a book. And I'm not even really going to call this a review as such, because I don't feel like I don't feel like I know how to review books properly. This is basically just going to be my thoughts about this book, because for me this book was genuinely one of the most amazing books I've ever read, and I just want to say a little bit about it because I felt like it kind of changed me. And when I read a book that is just so good, I just want to talk about it. Basically, this book is about a kid called Christopher, who's I think about 14 or 15, and he's got autism, which is one of the reasons why this book is so interesting. The book starts with Christopher finding that his neighbour's dog got killed apparently in the night by a kitchen fork. And that's why it's sort of, you might think at first that it's kind of like a mystery novel, because Christopher starts the book trying to find out who killed the dog and how it got killed and why it got killed and all that stuff. But then as the book continues, you realise that the focus of the book isn't actually, the mystery of how the dog got killed, but it's mostly about Christopher's personality and how he sees the world itself. And that's what makes it really, really interesting, because I've always wanted to learn more about autism, and it's something that I don't know much about at all. So being able to read a story completely told by the perspective of someone with autism was just really, really interesting and very different. The story is told from Christopher's perspective. He's basically the narrator of the book, and it's really interesting because one of the first, in the first few books, and this isn't a spoiler or anything because it's not really that important, one of the first things that you get to know about him is that he's obsessed with prime numbers. I think he said something like he's memorized all the prime numbers up to like 7,000 something, which is incredible. And that's one of the first things that you learn about him. And at that point I didn't know that he had autism, because I'm one of those people, I don't really like reading the back of books when I buy books for some reason, because I feel like if I read the back of it, especially if I read the whole thing, it gives too much away. So I didn't know that he had autism. I went into this book pretty much knowing nothing about the story or anything or the characters. And so I was thinking, wow, how can someone have that much patience to actually learn all the prime numbers up to that massive number? And then obviously I realised that's partly because of the fact that he's got autism. It's really interesting as well because all the chapters are actually prime numbers. It starts with chapter 2, and at first again I was quite confused. I was like, where's chapter 1? And then I went on and I was like, oh, that's a very clever thing to do. But yeah, Christopher lives with his dad alone, and that itself brings quite a few problems, because obviously he hasn't got a mom to look after him, and he hasn't got any brothers or sisters, so it's only him and his dad. And his dad is a very patient man, but even him, even in the story from the very beginning, you kind of realise how hard it is for his dad to understand his son, which is really sad actually. I think for me the biggest thing about the whole story, what I got most out of the story, was how easy it is to misjudge people and just think that everyone should be behaving the same. Obviously in the book, because Christopher goes to school and stuff, and you kind of get to learn about how his teachers, his classmates, people in the streets, people who basically meet him for the first time, how they react to his way of interacting with the world. Because as an autistic person, he finds it very difficult to understand people. There's certain things that he doesn't like for example, he doesn't like being touched or hugged or anything. He hates being in really crowded places. If there's lots of noise and stuff, he can't handle it. And of course all of that causes some kind of problems for him and his family. Also, he's got trouble understanding people, like I said before, so he finds it quite difficult to communicate with people, and he takes everything very, very literally. So he doesn't understand idioms, or he even has trouble understanding facial expressions. And all of that just makes it a very, very interesting read. One thing that I found was quite interesting was that I usually, when I read a book, I can easily, I can connect with the narrator. That doesn't necessarily mean that the narrator is always my favourite person in the book, but I can usually, there's things that the narrator has or personality traits that they have that I can relate to or understand or connect to in some way. With Christopher in this book, I just couldn't understand him at all, and that made it quite difficult for me to feel sympathy for him or to understand him, which was really interesting because I felt like I just I don't know, I find it very hard to, you know, some of the things that he does, you know, in the book. I was just like, whoa, I can't sympathise with you. And I hated myself for it, because the reason I couldn't sympathise with him was because I couldn't understand him. I've never been in a position, obviously I'm not autistic, and I don't really know anyone who is. I'm not in like regular contact with any autistic people. So it was something that was completely foreign to me. And obviously our main character in this book is an autistic child. And for me, because all the stuff that he did, some of the stuff that he did was just completely bizarre, I was like, what are you doing, Christopher? And that's exactly what most of his friends and family and the people that he meets in the book think of him as well, which is sad, you know. It's basically, I think what I learned from this book is that I need to be more patient and just realize that not everyone's going to be the same, and there are going to be people who are obviously autistic or have other, you know, types of personalities that are different to mine, and I may not be used to them, but I need to be able to understand them and, you know, not get angry at them for acting in a way that is not their own fault. So yeah, that's all I want to say really about this book. That's pretty much what the book is about, really. It's not, I mean, the dog gets mentioned in the book quite a lot, because all throughout the book, Christopher is basically trying to be Sherlock Holmes and investigating and trying to find out about, you know, the murder. But the main focus definitely is on Christopher's point of view and how he deals with his surroundings and his family and everything that goes on around him. I thought it was a brilliant book. I've never read a book as unique as this before, and I've never had such a unique experience reading the book. I think if there's only one book you read this year, if you're not even a reader at all, if you've never read a book in your life before, which is, you know, I can't quite believe, but if you don't really like books, I think you should still give this book a try, because it's really, really easy to read. I mean, I read this in a day. It's about 260 pages long, but it's so easy to read. You can finish it in like hours. I couldn't put it down. I was like, I started it with the goal of, like, you know, starting a new book for the next few days of my life, and then I read it in one sitting, and I was like, whoa, that went quick. But yeah, it's really easy to read, and it's very nicely written, and it's just very, very interesting. So I hope you guys read it if you want to. And yeah, happy World Book Day again. I'm sorry, I know this wasn't like a review of a book or anything. I just wanted to let you know about this book because I really loved it and I really enjoyed reading it. I might do more book reviews in the future if I read a book that I really, really love. But obviously I won't be making reviews of every single book that I read, because that would just be insane. So yeah, let me know what you think if you have read the book already, and if you do read it in the future, I'd be really interested to see what you think of the book, because I thought it was just excellent. And I will see you guys later. Bye!